Alright, this is part 3. Now I know why the camera turned off. It's my old camera. It only does 10-minute increments and then it shuts off. So, I guess I got a lot to say about this subject. We've got, where was I? I might as well just, wrap this up, but the idea that we're light, that we have these voltaic systems, is in essence... Maybe I should just do my video on light right now. This is something I wanted to do, and I'm not going to try to orchestrate it too much. Okay, DNA, the resonance of our DNA, they're saying if it's unfolded, the harmonic resonance, the resonance is around 150 megahertz, which they say is just amazing because it's the same as radio waves. And when people talk about MK Ultra, mind control projects, government, CIA, stuff like this, these things are real. They exist. So when I diss conspiracy theories, it's not that I diss that they happen, it's that I diss the idea that they're controlling all of us through some particular wave. But I don't doubt it's possible, because it is possible. My example is HAARP, the High Atmosphere Auroral Research Program up in Alaska, where they do all the ionospheric testing, and I've done a lot of looking into that, and it has potential for things, but people are saying that that's controlling people through these nanoparticles, on and on. Not to get into the conspiracy thing, I want to try to stick to the science here, but DNA is a signal. This is my kind of take on what I'm learning here about this light. DNA emits light, okay? Visible light, though, in the spectrum, the visible human spectrum. Because those who, if you're aware, the light is on a wave spectrum. The visible light is, I believe, 1/1000% of the entirety of the spectrum. So around you, we've got radio waves, microwaves, infrared just below, and ultraviolet just above. All these different types of frequencies, all the way up to gamma rays, which are very tightly packed, say like atomic energy. They're vibrating at an atomic level, whereas, say, a radio signal is about the size of a large building. And all the way in between, like microwaves are maybe the size of a person or something. So you have all these different waves, different sizes, and then there's the visible spectrum, which only we can see just because of the way the light reflects off of the electrons, the way that the light exchanges photons. I'm not a scientist, and I'm not going to try to explain it because it's hard for me to even understand. And this all started when I was trying to figure out why glass and water are clear. I mean, sure, I understand that electrons are, really don't exist. They're not. It's not the old orbiting balls model they told you. That's not what's really going on. It's more of a potential. An electron has a potential to be at one place or another, but it's really just a force. It's all force, everything. Even down to the nucleus of an atom, I believe, is more forces at work. I won't get into that. So, DNA, in my theory here, is a signal. DNA is something that's passed on to a child. It's not something that is just, manifested as it doesn't just appear. What I mean is that the DNA exists and replicates itself, but it receives programming signals from the universe. Okay, like as a baby is forming in the womb, the DNA, they have their DNA. But this DNA, whether or not, how much it's altered by your environment as opposed to how much you're stuck with it, let's say. People say, oh, well, it's in your genetics, and they're finding a lot of this isn't true. Some diseases aren't genetic, they just happen to be, you're in the company of the people who have it in your family. That these waves, not just light waves, visible light, but now we're talking about microwaves, UV light in particular, can pass through a sealed container into another sealed container that's sterilized, and the virus that's in one container can begin to structure itself out of this nothingness, because it's a potential. This is where the roots for this whole holographic universe come from, and I think the more people understand it, the more exciting it'll become for people, because this is what the whole thing was talked about, that the data is stored in the cells, okay? The information that we have is stored in the DNA. But the brain is secondary to that. An example is they cut off the head of a particular worm. They did all these experiments. They cut off the brain, and within a week it grew back, and he still had his memory. He was able to follow the maze or go out in the light whatever this particular project was. It's amazing. It has implications that show. And the other one they did was that they take a cell and they bombard it with UV rays until it's 99% gone. Then, including the DNA from the cell, everything's gone, 99% of it. And then they give it what they call light therapy, phototherapy, of the same UV wavelength, the exact same wavelength at a lighter degree, and it builds itself back 100% within a day. You know what that means? It means DNA means nothing. It means the DNA had potential the whole time to be there. It's the resonant light of that DNA that was there, returning through whatever means it may be. I'm not going to speculate too much here, although I am anyway. So yeah, you remove the DNA from a cell, it'll grow back with light. Whatever. You know, Bohm talked about the quantum field, which surrounded everything. You know, and a lot of people have called these scientists crazy, but they're proving to be right. We've got, Rupert Sheldrake talks about the morphogenic field. That's always been one of my favorites. And you see these animals that have bioluminescence and biophotonic type of action where they glow, and you think, what is that? How amazing. Even a chameleon or sea creatures, octopus, that can change their environment, that kind of stuff is done on a totally different level, but how is this information passed on? It's just like when fish move in a school or birds in a flock. Science has kind of been stumped on that one. I mean, you can have magnetite in your brain, sure, that can help you to fly, but it's not going to necessarily tell you what the whole entirety of the group is doing. And this photonic exchange can really lend us a little bit of understanding about that. So these photos, this energy, these photons that are stored by our body, by our DNA in particular, is utilized like a battery. Some of it is used as actual visible light. Some of it's sent out as ultraviolet light. Some of this light is sent out as infrared to our body, which is how the body's temperature system works and how our body keeps warm. It's basically a little reaction. It's causing heat. It's pretty amazing stuff. It really is. So radiation of cells is like the carrier of light. Light within the cell. I think that's all I pretty much wrote down. I just had a few notes on here because I've learned that I tend to forget when I ramble. So I'm probably out of time anyway. I'll see what I got so I don't get cut off. Yeah, I got 2 more minutes. Alright, so I'll finish up. Thanks for sticking around because this stuff's fun. So what does this mean for us? I guess for you it's going to be different than for me. But for me, what this shows me is when people start talking about light bodies, astral bodies, and light workers, I can start to attribute scientific understanding to it to an extent. So when people say, oh, well, this is phototherapy, we use light therapy to try to heal your cancer or your sickness. Somebody might say that's quackery. That's just dumb. But if you have this information, you can have a different opinion on it. Be like, okay, that might work. If your skin is sun damaged, perhaps the same wavelength lesser could help you to fix it. They've successfully used it on prostate, breast, and skin cancer, I believe, using phototherapy. I'm not sure how deep it goes, but I urge you to do your own research on it and look into it because it just blows me away. I know I already did a video yesterday about it, but it's too interesting to pass up. So anyway, I think that's all I got, and just remember that everything that's considered quackery at one time ends up having some sort of ground in truth at one time or another. At least a lot of it. So, peace.